On the next all-new episode of My Hero Academia.
You fought and fought today, spilling so much blood for no reason.
Midoriya!
You're finally mine. Come to me, one for all.
My Hero Academia, next Saturday at midnight.
Fear not. Let us take care of this for you.
Only Toonami on Adult Swim. When the Joker takes everything from Superman.
Superman isn't thinking straight.
All hostilities will stop, or I will stop them.
The world's greatest heroes must stop his wrath or die trying.
Please don't do something you'll regret for the rest of your life.
I already have. Injustice, next Saturday night at 12:30. Only Toonami on Adult Swim.
The following program may contain coarse language, suggestive dialogue, and discussion of violent imagery and sexual situations. It is intended for mature listeners who can tell the difference between facts and opinions.
We'll see what form the wish takes on this episode of the Toonami Faithful podcast. I am your host, Sketch, and with me I have...
Editor-in-Chief at ToonamiFaithful.com, CJ Maffris.
And...
Editorial Writer, VLord GTZ.
And...
Another editorial writer, LaserKid.
And I will not be serenading you with another One Piece rap, because today we're talking about Made in Abyss!
I'm very happy about that, actually. I would have immediately left. I would have walked out of the building. I would have said, don't call me, I'll call you.
Well, it's a good thing you didn't show up for that recording.
The night is still young, Sketch. I can do it here as well.
Oh, no.
Oh, I hope not, because I told you to cover the conversation this time. But
it's true.
Before
I
we get into
specifically
that-
asked for this episode.
And I'm glad you did, because there's a lot of little details that I would probably obsess over.
To be fair, I just go, and this is a great lesson in facilitating when you're with a group of people to discuss a topic. I kind of just let everyone go with the flow with it. I say, hey, stuff happens. Sketch, what stuff happened? And then a conversation just goes, and it's just magical. It works every time. Facilitate when you're the host of something. It's 101, and it's so damn good.
Well, before we start facilitating that, we do have some lineup news that is relevant to people who are watching Toonami week to week. That being, we have the full schedules for February 4th and February 11th, in which we have 2 nights with season finale hours for Yashahime and Made in Abyss.
Yeah, I had no idea Yashahime was an hour-long finale. God damn it, why?
I mean, it wasn't, but otherwise they would have had to play the last episode of Yashahime the same night as the hour of Made in Abyss, and I mean, they could have done that.
Again, I asked, God damn it, why?
I don't know. I'm just a little disappointed that One Piece isn't airing on the 4th of
That
February.
one does not make sense to me. It really doesn't. I guess maybe it's just cheaper to air Primal again. I don't know. That one I have questions about.
Yeah. I mean, if they do have to pay for every time they air a premiere, then yeah. But I don't know.
I don't either.
I don't know.
I was scratching my head a little bit on that one.
I mean, on one hand, at least people who are watching One Piece don't have to stay up later to watch One Piece that week because One Piece just won't be on.
Wait a minute. I stayed till 3:30. Where is my One Piece?
Next week. That is the answer to that. So, yeah. The February 4th schedule starts out with My Hero Academia, followed with Made in Abyss. Then you have an hour of Yashihime, which finishes off the season. Then at 2 a.m. you have Naruto Shippuden, and at 2:30 the rerun of Primal, which has just restarted. They restarted season 2 specifically. Season 2 restarted. And then on February 11th, you have My Hero Academia, the 1 hour season finale of Made in Abyss. One Piece is back at 1:30, Naruto Shippuden at 2, and the rerun of Primal at 2:30. Now, they certainly could have just extended the block on the 11th and aired One Piece and Naruto a bit later, but it's fine. It's fine.
Or Sketch, they could have just, I don't know, announced the new acquisition, and start that.
I
wouldn't have minded that.
I would have been nice, for sure.
Well, that's coming theoretically on February 18th. That's when 2 time slots will be open.
One would hope.
I mean, one could certainly go back to One Piece.
We're just gonna have triple One Piece, guys. They just want to Punk hazard.
Triple's not necessary. Two's good.
Two is-
Though triples
listen to
is
Sketch.
triples
I'll
is
take
best. Triples is safe.
I would easily take it. Listen, I loved the One Piece hour. It made things go by so much faster and
It is
so
really
much more
nice.
crisp. It was good.
I agree.
So I wouldn't be upset about that.
I agree. I'm really hoping by the time they get to Dressrosa that they're back to an hour because 2 years of Dressrosa. Ooh.
Probably over 2 years too.
Yeah, I was gonna say
it's slightly over
about
2
2.5.
years.
Don't forget about
it's-
marathons of other stuff too, Sketch.
That's true. So 108 weeks plus. Yeah.
Yeah.
I might as well be 50 when it's done.
Well, Naruto Shippuden will be over by then.
True. The moving target never stops.
Indeed, the moving target never stops. But now
What's some cool
somehow through miraculous work and a lot of very quick dubbing, they are like 130 episodes behind Japan, which is crazy.
I can't even believe that. That's nuts.
Yeah. That's, the weirdest thing is it hasn't even been that long since these episodes of Punk Hazard were dubbed. It was really just a couple of years ago.
Yep.
And once they get to Dressrosa, it'll be just a couple of years since that. So that's, actually just, it might be like a year and a half since they started dubbing Dressrosa by the time they get to Dressrosa on Toonami. Anyway.
Like the old way how dubbing used to be of when shows would be ready, Sketch.
In the
You and I
before
remember
time.
that.
The before
yeah.
time, before the simuldubs.
Oh my gosh. Back when, if it only took a year, that was incredible.
Oh
Yeah.
man, that
Yeah.
was some crazy
Not
stuff.
gonna lie, I kind of miss those days. There's something about being rewarded for your patience that just made it a lot more satisfying than the instant gratification.
Yeah, simuldubs come off like fast food sometimes.
They
Yeah,
do,
they
and then
kinda do.
everyone forgets about them.
Oh, yeah, that's
Unless they're
definitely
like,
true.
mega hits like Spy Family and Chainsaw Man, right?
Right.
And then like those shows like that are all good, but then of course those hidden gems that we keep hearing Toonami fans want us to find, well, hey, that'd be great if they were given some time to breathe.
Mm.
That's my thing.
Yeah.
So,
There's a
Yeah.
lot of
It's a
stuff that flew under the radar in this era, though. Like A lot of it is stuff that would be difficult due to who owns them at this point, but
You say that now, but that might be changing too.
that might be changing. And I hope so. I really hope so. I'm very glad we got Hero Academia, and I would love for more of that. But like, you know, little things like, you know, when we got Gridman, well, you know, there is Dynazenon.
I wish we.
I'm gonna say I want that just because waifus. That's all I will say.
Yeah.
CJ, you have your priorities straight.
Listen,
too many of those waifus are underage.
I thought there was like a scientist that was like an adult.
One of the bad guys is of age.
Nah,
okay, because I remember like some sort of scientist-looking lady with like a white lab coat.
Yeah, she's one of the bad guys.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's what I was thinking of then. That's all I care about, Sketch. Fuck you.
All right. Okay.
Because I haven't seen it yet.
Same. Well, I think I saw maybe 2 episodes before it started getting dubbed.
You gotta finish the Sketch. It's super good.
Dynazenon, very good.
Was it better than Gridman? I loved Gridman. I thought it was great.
It's hard. It's not worse. It's not better. It's different.
I'd say Gridman edges out for me because I like the characters more in Gridman.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
All right, Toonami, if you're listening, get it now.
Get Ranking of Kings.
Yo,
yes!
That would be hype.
I say no.
Why do you say
that
no?
against our Lord and Savior Boji?
Because I'd rather another show.
Well,
that's pretty much it.
I mean, that's fair.
And I'm still waiting for High School of the Dead one of these days, Sketch.
We're gonna get that in Domestic Girlfriend. Then you'll be happy.
Listen, Toonami fans are not ready for that arc.
Ooh, that would be a spicy 12 weeks.
And one where everyone would want to shoot out their eyeballs.
And then they too can
You know
suffer
what
from
we
the
need?
fact that there is still no more High School of the Dead.
I know.
You know, we really need School Days in here.
Oh, I know that one.
I've
thank
never
goodness
seen
that
it,
never
but I
got
know-
dubbed.
But I know what that ending is.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice boat.
Boat. And he's on a boat.
I'm on a boat.
Don't you ever forget. No. But seriously, I think they're getting Urza Yatsura.
Oh,
Honestly, that'd be
they're
pretty
getting
awesome.
that.
Just putting that out there.
That would be a good get. That would be amazing.
And I just got this feeling that one of those time slots in February is going to go to FLCL Grunge. We'll see.
And
They
maybe
haven't
Attack
started
on
promoting
Titan.
it yet. Well, no. That's not going to come until like April.
Says you, Sketch.
Says
you.
me. Because it's not airing in Japan until March.
Listen. We all know it's another space dandy.
Yeah, Toonami gets the dub premiere.
Oh gosh, we get another
before
space
it's even in Japan.
I mean, I don't know. That
makes it
could
fun-
happen, but
And what makes it funny, Sketch, is that it's going to be drawn out for 52 weeks. The final ending, part 17 of Attack on Titan.
Well, supposedly it might be just 2 90-minute movies.
That would be.
But they'll air on TV, so that's still technically under contract. Maybe.
That'd be such a troll. Absolute troll job. Do it.
Oh my god.
I mean, I think that'd be a fine way to finish things off. I mean, there's only 9 chapters left to adapt.
Yeah, there isn't much dialogue in them. It's mostly just big landscapes.
Yeah.
Oh, so they went the Bleach Avenue.
Kinda.
I'm just a very big person of things stretching for too long.
Yeah. But hopefully something cool or something surprising shows up in at least one of those time slots. We will see. Chances are they are going to announce it tomorrow.
Perfect timing.
Just to spite us.
Yeah, I could see it.
Well, I mean, this schedule came out last Friday, and we're recording on a Thursday, so it might not be tomorrow. It might be the week after, but
it might be never. Who knows?
Toonami's just canceled, guys.
Oh, yeah, Toonami's
Back
after Made in Abyss finishes, Toonami's canceled.
Toonami's canceled. Stay gold, everybody. If only they aired Bobo could have been saved.
I
mean, we joke, but the day Toonami does get canceled, it's gonna be abrupt.
Oh yeah.
It's just gonna be like, well, it's gone.
You had it, then you lost it.
Yeah. We'll be lucky if we get a sign off this time.
we have to leave, and we have to tell the fans thank you, but we don't want to spend the money. All right, just take it away.
It's a black and white card.
Literally, it would be hilarious to just replay the exact same departure video.
Listen, I'll take it. No Tom Ford slander in this house.
Gosh, do you remember the Lucky Sevens promo when they played that music? And they're like, oh, no, Toonami's not going anywhere.
Yes, I remember.
Our bad.
About that.
Our bad.
Epic trolling.
Just the way I like it. Extra salt.
Yeah, for sure.
So, all right, Sketch. Now that we had the news taken, the agenda part of the news all wrapped up, do you want to talk about the abyss?
Yes, let us descend further into the abyss.
So, I wanted, before we go into nitty-gritty of the episodes, because honestly, 7 through 9, which are the ones that we're going to be talking about in this episode, I really love the storytelling part of it, right? I really enjoy the narrative that has been kind of unfolding before the viewer's eyes and how it all ties together. Because when you're first brought into Made in Abyss, you not only are seeing Rico, Reg, and Nanachi's story continuing as they reach the 6th layer in that village, you're also seeing what supposedly looks like the first exploration team ever in the Abyss, right? And you're kind of getting these adjacent type of stories being told side by side, and you're wondering, okay, how is this past story setting up for what Rico, Reg, and Nanachi are going to be facing, and how it all culminates is just such well-written stuff. It's beautiful. We understand why this village is even where it is, the inhabitants of it, the history of how it came to be, all through the eyes of the storyteller Weko. And what makes it even crazier is the fact that Weko's still alive. I was like, what the heck?
And supposedly still human.
Yeah,
which somehow
I don't believe personally on that, but be that as it may.
Yeah, I don't know how she could have lived that long.
Exactly. Especially considering she was naked that whole time too, which is like, please get some fucking clothes on these characters.
It's nice and warm in the dark cave with
she was directly connected to things, so
again, just put a shirt on of these characters. I am so sick of seeing people be naked and afraid. You know what? It's just like I don't know. It just bothers it. That's a whole nother story of just I feel like it's a way to just make it a little more torturous, and it's just stop, please. So I love how the story has pretty much been able to connect everything, and through the eyes of the viewers have their eyes pretty much through the perspective of Rico, Reg, and Nanachi, and to be able to kind of get that extra context as everything comes together is just such a beautiful meld of storytelling that I can't get enough of. Finding out how those villagers, quote unquote, survived as Weko was telling the story, especially when we were seeing everyone kind of, getting sick and losing their minds, kind of like the Abyss Curse earlier, especially when people were expanding and then pop like balloons. I was just like, oh, yeah, that's fun.
Don't get caught by one of the birds.
Yeah. Hey, Alfred Hitchcock taught us that. So by all means,
you're saying the place is going to the birds.
It certainly did. And so it's one of those types of things that I greatly appreciate. And something that I and this is going into my hot take territory in a sec, but something that I really do appreciate with how Made in Abyss is telling the story is the fact that this one is much more emotional than season 1. But it's not emotional in the same way. So what I mean by that is that when I was watching season 1, and I think when many people were watching season 1, it had much more shock factor that was just like, oh god, and like expletives coming out of your mouth, right? More famously when Rico had to have her arm broken and then, you know, replaced and all that type of stuff, where you hear the snap, you see all the gruesome, you know, it was that jump scare type of kind of exclamation point on the series to show how real these stakes are. And then you have this season, which almost is like completely opposite and even more emotional when you learn the history and backstory of this village. And the problem, and like my hot take for it, I feel like a lot of Toonami fans, and I'm saying this because I work with the social teams as watching through our social media feed for live tweeting and all this kind of stuff. I think they're taking that same type of shock factor into this season. That's almost like, I feel it is so unfair for how the season is, because it's doing a much better job of really making it more so much of a psychological type of jump scare, as opposed to that, you know, physical in your face where you go, because a lot of the scenes, like where we find out about Faputa's mother, right? And we see the history of not only her wish and like the kids and all that, you see reactions of people be like, oh god, no. And I'm just like, okay, now we're overreacting a little bit, because that's not the typical reaction of these types of very, very depressing scenes. It's not like, these are depressing scenes and depressing, like, you know, moments of the story. And I'm sorry, when someone who's facing these types of things are in their face, you're not going to go, oh fuck, depression. No, it's more like a and you're kind of like holding your arm like on the side, like squeezing it, maybe playing with your hands, looking down, kind of just like, oh, I don't want to look at it. And I'm worried that a lot of Toonami fans aren't able to differentiate between the different traumas that we're seeing in this. And I feel that it's cheapening the impact of the backstory of like Fuego, of Faputa, as we'll probably learn more with Reg as well, since we're kind of getting a little more into the history of who Reg has been involved with beforehand. And I find that a bit troubling, because I think we're still stuck on the fact of like the shock factors that we got from like where Rico had to have her arm fixed, finding out about Rico's history with Ozen and Liza, right? And it's gotten to a point where I really feel that it's important to be actually paying attention to what's playing out, instead of just going through the default kind of emotional reaction, just because that's how it set the tone from the first season. Because as we're watching Made in Abyss season 2 right now, it's developed. And you can even go so far as back as the film too, where it has kind of this in between of both, where it has that shock factor of like, oh my god, and then also that depressed, like, you want to keep it inside. And so I was a little troubled by that reaction, and I'm wondering if, because Toonami's interest itself has dwindled, just as things do, you know, like you're never going to be able to really retain that type of audience that they had, you know, before, just with how landscapes change, how people consume anime, how people consume media in general. And I think because it's dwindled, a lot of the fans who are still sticking with it now are trying to either recreate that type of community aspect of like the shock factor that we get, where you can, you know, look back at like some memorable moments before where you kind of had that happen on different shows. And I'm wondering if they're just trying to bring that feel back, just because it's a more comfortable type of feeling from what Toonami was before. And it's just like, Made in Abyss is not a comfortable show. It's like, you're not supposed to feel comfortable watching this. Like, believe me, I would say it's one of the best things that I've seen in, you know, recent memory as far as a storytelling type of thing. But I'm not going to be like, yo, guys, you guys should check out this new anime called Made in Abyss. You'll really like it. I'm not doing that. You need to be emotionally prepared for something. And I find it very, very critical to, and like vital to be able to mention this type of reaction, because I think it's important for Toonami fans to really differentiate between these two things, because there's two different traumas, right? There's the difference between a trauma of like breaking your arm and like seeing, and a great example of this is like a famous sports injury, which I am going to say now, do not look up if you're the faint of heart, what happened to a basketball player for Louisville named Kevin Ware, there's a much different trauma and reaction to something like that, as opposed to losing a family member, as we saw with Faputa's mother. So I want to like make it clear of like, I think people are missing the appropriate reaction to it, and I think they're doing it in a headspace where they're thinking, oh, I want to try to help out to recreate kind of more interest with the block, as opposed to just letting things kind of play out the way it is. Because believe me, Made in Abyss is enough to be able to draw people in. That show is not for the faint of heart. It is classic adult animation, 100%. I think this is a perfect show to be on this current iteration of Toonami. And I want to make that kind of clear for people who might be listening to this, as well as maybe others who were also kind of feeling the same way. Because, like, honestly, the reactions from these latest few episodes, it felt like people were going like, "Oh, fuck, depression," and it's just like that's not a real way of how people really react to that type of kind of trauma. And it's just it rubbed me the wrong way, and not like in a I'm mad at everyone, but more so in a sense like I think people need a little bit more to kind of really get that into their feelings, because like it's a very uncomfortable feeling. It's a very uncomfortable show, and I think it's important to kind of dive into that uncomfortableness and kind of articulate to be able to better explain it, so that people can feel a bit more natural in watching it, instead of feeling that more uncomfortable thing, so they have to just blurt something out just to make it so it isn't as uncomfortable. So that's something that at least I've noticed on that front. Like I say, I think the show is absolute nails in that it's gotten much more darker, much more depressing, and not even in that like shock and awe type of factor, but more so in just like, oh, this is just sad. This is really sad, especially when you get the context of the village too. And I like I said, I can't harp on it enough on being able to differentiate between those two different traumas.
Yeah, I think of Irumyui. Just her whole story is just devastating.
It's just ow.
She's rejected from her family. Originally, her family really adored her. She was the only daughter. Her brothers adored her. Her mother adored her. Then they find out that she can't have kids, and now she's been excommunicated from the village, basically. And all she wanted was the love of a mother, which she, in a sense, gets from Voiko, and Voiko reluctantly fills that role for her. And you just see the two of them grow, and as things keep happening to Irumyui, it just gets grimmer and grimmer and more disturbing. And you could see Voiko's at the point that she's like beyond the point where she wants to end her life. Mm-hmm. She just wants to end it all. But she realizes that she has to carry on for Irumyui's sake until we get all the way to the point where Irumyui becomes the village and starts transforming the others. And she's like, okay, I'm done. She's going to die, and I'm going to die now. And she is not allowed to do that because Wazukan will not let her die. And she
wasn't. And Voiko wasn't the only one feeling that too. That the guy with the scar on his eye, I forget his name.
Yes, Biloff. When he realizes what he's consuming, he's so torn up about it. He's like trying to claw his face off, and he's like, "Please stop feeding it to me. I can't. I have to eat it if you feed it to me, but I don't want you to." It's like, and Made in Abyss is not necessarily handling this as carefully as one might prefer, but there's definitely allusions to losing your children in birth, miscarriages, and the pain that everyone goes through from a miscarriage. And well, they also need to have sustenance, so
it creates this level of just direness and helplessness that I don't think you'll really get from another show, which is why I think the reactions that you are getting are I wouldn't say incorrect. I think that's unfair. Are different than what the norm is just because of how uncomfortable it is. Like that topic, especially sketch, so uncomfortable to breach, and it's one of the more sadder things you could ever talk about.
Yeah.
Well, what really makes it hurt is it's Sophie's choice.
Mm-hmm.
Do we not eat these kids? Do we not? And then everyone dies, including her? Or do we do this, which is terrible, but then some live? It's not a good choice. And I can't, as much as it makes me sad to see the good go the way it goes, I can't really blame them.
No, and I don't think as viewers we should, because like we understand where survival of oneself and like I've had this conversation before with like hierarchy of needs. What's the need that is like the most basic for anyone? Surviving, right? So it's tough for anyone here to just like cast judgment on the choices they made on that. You can cast judgment on maybe the motives, as Sketch was kind of alluding to, but you can understand at least the motives of some of the individuals, because we obviously see regret, which I think is kind of admirable in this situation to an extent, especially considering the choices they make afterward, right? But it's hard to, at least for me, to be like, oh, the whole village deserves to die. I can understand why Iramui and Faputa might feel that way. Totally understandable, justified even. But I don't necessarily blame most of the villagers. I think we know who gets most, if not all, the blame on this.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing is, there's even that moment where Voiko's like, can you just let her stay with the baby until it dies?
Goes away. He's like, oh, I wish I could.
And he reasons that freshness is important. It's like, yeah, but you could probably
really though.
Yeah.
you could probably wait until like the moment that they die. I mean, if you leave them around, yeah, that's not very fresh. But I mean,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The saddest thing is that they are going to die. They can't survive. They don't have all. And even though she gives birth to so many of them and kind of evolves them over time until obviously eventually she manages to create Faputa, which is a creature that can keep living, a quote unquote a perfect creature. And
Shadow the Hedgehog, is that you?
Right. It's but as a moment of levity, the body horror is absolutely awful in this, but there's those moments where Iramui's like a big tree trunk with a head, and the head looks like Stewie Griffin.
Oh God! Now that you say that, I don't think I can unsee it in my mind's eye.
That's why. Just why.
But seriously, the body horror in this is So
surprisingly, I think it was worse in season 1.
When you
as bad as some of this is, honestly, I don't feel this is as bad as, at least not as bad as the movie.
I don't know. I had to like step away from my TV for a while after watching the flashback stuff. It was too much for me.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's bad. It's not bad. It's bad.
Iramu becomes the stump, and Voiko's like, "Oh, you must be so miserable," and then Iramui's limbs come out and embrace Voiko. I'm like, oh man,
that's the emotional side of it, where it's just like and this one does definitely. As far as emotional stuff, this season beats everything in terms of just emotional trauma.
Mm-hmm.
That touches on what CJ was saying earlier. Like, in terms of the gross out, I think it's actually we're over the hump. But in terms of the emotional, buckle up.
Yeah. And maybe I think a little bit because I haven't had really anything to direct the anger towards. Not as much, at least until we found out who... that certain individual that Rico met at the restaurant who could speak English, right? But like we always had that like central figure who we could kind of channel a lot of that emotion toward, like, oh, I don't know, Bondred, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah,
I think
screw
missing
laundry.
that is what makes at least season 2 up to this point, since obviously that will change now, more just uncomfortable because you just hated everything. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't, you couldn't channel it to one thing. You just really disliked everything. Everything about that village is just bad news, and you wish that our trio could have somehow avoided it. And I know that that's impossible, but it's just, there's nothing about it that I like. Absolutely nothing, right? Like, the values that are kind of like the basis of that village, right? I just don't like it. I don't like how they trick Nanachi, because I don't think that's really MIDI. I'm sorry. I'm throwing that one out there. I have nothing to base that on, but I don't think that really is it. They just are using MIDI's kind of emotions to be able to have her stay, since she's a hollow just like them, yada yada. And it's like, I hate everything about this area. It's just awful.
I think
Absolutely
what's
awful.
most disturbing about it too, it's like now that we've seen all these flashbacks, you kind of get a bigger picture of like these people have essentially become the villagers, like a warped version of who they once were, and it's twisted their mindset to the point where like what they're doing is really effed up, but to them they think it's just this completely normal behavior.
And I wonder if like their outcast status might have impacted on that feeling as well, VLord. Just because I wonder about that, because they were all cast aside, and now it's kind of, I wouldn't say they're like getting revenge or anything like that, because who makes it to the 6th floor? Not many. But it's almost as if like they go to more extremes of how they run things, just because they were kicked out through extreme measures themselves.
It's entirely possible. I mean, their whole existence has been pretty screwed up, physically, emotionally, all of these things. That has to have painted their worldview to some extent, at the very least.
Yeah.
And like I said, tying it all together made it magical. Like, storytelling wise, like finding out how like the village became what it is, and like the inhabitants. Oh my god, that was brilliant, because like you get the bits and pieces throughout these 9 episodes, and then all of a sudden to like find out, you know, who's the main antagonist's name for this sketch?
The main antagonist, Wazukyan?
The dude, Wazukan. Like, finding out who what he turned into, and then what we see, like the moment we found that out and we see that from the flashback, I'm like, I was like, I don't know who the actor is in that meme, but it's this the guy who's kind of just like rubbing his chin, is just like, oh shit, kind of thing. I'm sure you know the gif that I'm talking about, that you see on Twitter all the time. And it's just like, I'm like, oh my god, how did they do that? Is so ingenious. I'm so impressed to be able to tie that in perfectly to where they lived and survived all this time, so that they're not, it's like, yeah, it's a flashback of when they still had humanity, and now we see what happened afterwards. Holy crap, get out of here, guys, leave. Oh, it was absolutely wonderful storytelling. I can't say enough. It's one of the best stories I've seen air on Toonami, and it's just been, oh, it's such a trip. And the fact we still have more episodes of just like depression and sadness, because if there's one thing that I did kind of, I would say, spoil myself a little bit, is the overall meaning of the ending theme of this song. And I'm going to leave it there because I'm not going to spoil it for anyone else, but I'm very interested at how things wrap up on it, because oh my god, I need to know. This is just depression in a show. This is literally depression.
Yeah.
Absolute sadness. Like, you go through the abyss levels, and it's like Dante's Inferno, and it's, instead of like hell, it's just stages of depression. That's all we're getting.
The true horror of the abyss, depression.
Yes.
I mean,
And
I can
capitalism.
see it.
Well, we already knew that. That's stage 1 sketch.
Yeah.
You know, retail therapy. That's how we try to solve the issue. It doesn't actually help, but we try it anyway.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, honestly, that's like the least of the problems they have in this city.
I know. And
that says so much.
And I'm curious, at least for everyone here, just especially these 3 episodes, what were your guys' reaction when you kind of see everything tied together? Because like before, you're like I say, we're just seeing like 2 adjacent stories and kind of thinking that the past flashbacks were just kind of like setting a tone of what horrors were set to become, only to find out that they were actually the horrors themselves. And I'm curious on at least like how it developed into this into what we have right now, because it's just like I don't know, like it is like Law and Order writing here, where they're able to tie such long convoluted ideas together in like multiple episodes. And I'm just like, this is genius. This is absolutely banger.
For me, it was just kind of really sad, like watching it all happen go down, and it's just like, I see how we got here. Although Wazuken made some choices that I'm not a fan of, I don't even really hate him for what he did outside, for given the situation. But it's just like, it all comes down to approach. Like, you could have done things a little bit differently, but I understand, and it's just like it goes back and forth between horror and understanding and sadness in a cycle.
A never-ending cycle.
It's a never-ending cycle. I'll be like, I get it, but I know those are both groans, but they have different meanings.
It's the same thing of like how we handle different types of traumas. You're not going to do it the same one for the same or for 2 different situations.
Yeah,
you shouldn't. At least let me put it this way: you shouldn't, or believe me, you'll get some weird looks at certain situations where it isn't appropriate for. And I've seen it firsthand, and it's so awkward. Oh no! But what about you, VLord?
I think for me, it's like when I started season 2, I felt like once I got the connection between like, okay, these past flashbacks are clearly some sort of representation of who's currently in the village. I had a feeling that something terrible is going to happen, and I was waiting for the shoe to drop. And I think these episodes kind of really paid off in a way that was far more disturbing than I expected. But like Laser said, it's a situation where I feel like usually you can direct like your anger, your frustration towards like an antagonist of some sort. But in the case of like Wazukian, like it's really hard to do that, because for one thing, I feel like this season really does not depict him that much as a straightforward antagonist just because of his behavior in like the present day. But also the fact that like you kind of see why he was doing what he did, even if it was for morally questionable, like through morally questionable methods. And I think the relationship between Voiko and Irumyuui too is also just so tragic in that way, because like you see them grow this bond over the season, and then they're just going through this cruelest moment in their lives, and it's just really tough to watch.
It certainly feels that way, and I remember Sketch obviously bringing up with the topic of miscarriage. It's almost like another form. I wouldn't necessarily say Fueko's like child was Irumyuui on that, but it's like she lost a child. You know what I mean? Not necessarily in the same way as a miscarriage, but just that theme of losing something precious and beautiful. It's just, it's gut-wrenching.
Are you saying that this is loss?
Ugh.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
We were having a moment.
I had to get some form of levity because it's just like a long spiral of depression about this whole thing.
This is Made in Abyss. Depression on acid. You know.
It kind of is.
So when this season opened up and we got our first glimpses of this other group of explorers, I thought it was an interesting juxtaposition that we had going on at the same time as our more familiar characters. And I was really interested in finding out how this village comes to be, how they become hollows. And I had no idea how they were going to become hollows. Like, you might have been thinking, oh, maybe they're like a special circumstance, like with Nanashi and Midi, but would not have guessed at all what actually happened. And
I kind of wish it was the other way, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I was waiting for the Abyss to be
Tremendously.
like, hi, bye, and have something. I mean, it kind of did, but that's not what actually caused the things to go.
Yeah, they
the way
found
they
out
did.
real quick that the going back up the elevator was a bad idea.
Yeah.
They're stuck there for better or for worse.
So that and I don't think it really truly explains the perversion of the forms that these characters took on, but I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit of Iramui's influence, kind of
It might
twisting
be.
things.
Maybe it's how Iramui viewed everyone, especially the more and more as she was getting disformed.
But I want to pose this question, because I don't think Iramui actually hates the villagers. I don't think that she begrudges them.
I would agree with you.
Yeah, same here.
And
I would think she's like still kind of unaware in a sense.
perhaps
She generated defenders.
True,
Yes.
but I do wonder because of her last child. That's why I say maybe
that's
a
the
little
thing,
unaware.
though.
Mm.
But even though Faputa might be carrying on Iramui's will, Faputa might have come to her own conclusions.
Yeah, maybe. Especially since we're seeing that she had a relationship with Reg. And I'm curious if that relationship might be kind of what you're talking about, Sketch.
Perhaps. I do really want to know about Reg and Faputa's relationship, and we, even at this point, still don't know very much.
I know, I was just about to ask about that too.
Reg has no memory of his time with Faputa, so she's like, well, if you complete the promise, then I'll give you a piece of me. He's like, could you tell me one more time? He's like,
Nope,
No,
no,
you don't
no,
need.
no,
You get the piece anyway. Here you go.
no. All right, well, fulfill your promise. It's like, what am I? Reg, always getting into trouble.
Poor Reg. Now, I honestly, if there's somebody I want to smack in this arc, it's Faputa.
Yeah.
I understand where the rage comes from. I understand why she's mad, why she wants to do what she wants to do. But she's not going to undo the trauma and the horribleness that happened to her mother by killing everyone. In fact, it renders all of that suffering meaningless because now all of it was for nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel bad for Faputa, though. Like, she's clearly
too.
in the wrong here, but, like, I think, like, definitely it's not Iramui's wish to take, like, revenge on the village. I think very much Faputa's projecting her own feelings and using her mother's, like, death as, like, an excuse. But at the same...
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like...
No, her mother's not exactly dead.
Well, I guess...
Well,
villagification
planned
of...
death.
Yeah,
But she cannot speak.
exactly. She became a house.
She became a
Boy, I wish I
became
could do that.
brick
She became a tower.
house.
That's why I was back to the early episodes of this season. I'm like, when you know what that tower actually is.
Oh, you sneaky sneak.
If you
But I
know,
guess,
you
like,
know.
I guess like the big thing too is about that Faputa
Iramui is a
relationship,
big
right?
thing, yes.
Because like I look at it where that's kind of the last piece for this, right? Because we still don't know if the promise that Reg and Faputa made to each other has anything really to do with what we're learning about this village now. I would like to assume that just because that's kind of where things are heading. But I'm very intrigued how Reg plays a role in this. Because like it seems like both Nanachi and Rico are kind of just like there for the ride. We kind of got a lot of their backstory and trauma out of the way. Obviously, you know, with Rico being stillborn, I guess, in a sense, and then revived.
Rico's
from
especially along for the ride at this point, but
right.
she
and
has
then,
had many interactions with the villagers.
And now
Yes.
she's literally sleeping.
right now that she's kind of just chilling after we kind of learn about her and
No,
Bondra.
she's
The
been
movie,
fridged.
the movie kind of really kind of put her story to a close, right? So they are kind of just following along with it. So it's actually really, really pivotal that we kind of learn more about Reg in this sense, because he's really the last kind of mystery of the trio. Like I said, we pretty much know everything about. The first season really handled that for us. The film, as well as the end of the first season, really helped with Nanachi. What about Reg? Does he count, right? And I think learning about maybe if I'm just waiting for another flashback where all of a sudden like Reg happened to actually be there, like at the beginning when the village kind of took form. And I'm very interested because there's other kind of entities that are like Reg, maybe not as human as he seems to be, but there's something there. There's something there about it that I'm not quite sure how to word or where it could be. And I find it's that whole mystery thing that I can't say enough of how much that intrigue can keep you hooked. And I think Made in Abyss, and it's so funny, Made in Abyss is like, whole premise is so simple. Big hole, explore. But yet it's like so riveting. It's one of the most riveting things you could see because of the layers, the the biology of like everything that's around in that area. This just depressing story of what's going on, right? All the dangers that are in it. It's all about exploration, and that's what makes it so exciting. And we're not quite getting it anymore, which is a little bit sad because I always enjoy like learning about the mysteries beyond. But here it's almost like learning the mysteries beyond of this relationship, and it's just like, what happened? What made Faputa and Reg allies at the start? Because clearly they had some sort of like friendly relationship. I don't necessarily know if it was more than that. And Faputa's kind of hinting at it a little bit, but I want to know. And I think that's kind of really the last piece of this puzzle of like this dreaded village, this absolutely horrible village. And it makes me wonder, did Ozen ever make it here? Did Bondrewd ever make it here?
Bondrewd did.
Bondrewd absolutely did.
I don't remember.
Ozen hasn't.
Yeah, Bondrewd used like his dummy copies to like
Yeah.
go down there.
And then they never really came up because of what we saw when they came up before from the flashback. Man, that's wild. I want to know if other people made it though.
You'd have to figure that Liza has come here.
Yeah,
Absolutely has to have.
But there you might have missed this detail, but
I probably missed quite a few.
Moogie talks about how she used to be a challenger. She used to be an adventurer. She wasn't in the original group, and she, at least that was my interpretation. And she does have kind of a longing to go continue the journey, but they can't leave the village. They can't.
I remember that conversation, but yeah, I missed the kind of like, oh, could that mean she was a cave raider?
So something else that Wazukan is potentially trying to accomplish here is getting Rico to make a wish and allow them to continue journeying deeper into the abyss.
Oh, and then she can turn into the next Iramui. Perfect.
Yeah, right.
Perfect.
Let's not do that.
No, I certainly hope.
And
not.
Moogie's even like, "Wow, you're not even denying it." And Wazukan's like, "Well."
It's almost like they're trying to be like a sitcom thing. Oh, you not even try to hide it. I know. Aren't I a stinker?
He is a stinker.
Yes, pretty much. But that's kind of the thing. But
no, wait, that's Kaja's thing. He's sent.
Oh my god, that's not what I mean, and you know it, Sketch. Don't do this to me. And I guess you could tell from just the conversation with this. I really like, as depressing as it is, it's been a phenomenal season. I love talking about it because there's so many layers. It's like ogres, onions, and the abyss. There's just so many layers to this, and Oh,
It's really well crafted. It's very enjoyable for as depressing as it is, as dark as it gets. It's really well done.
And that's why I enjoy it, because the telling of it, like, it's the telling of it that makes me impressed and really like savor everything more so than the actual content itself, right? Because I'm not, like I say, I'm not going to go up to people who don't really watch anime and be like, "Yo, you got to watch this with me, man. Main abyss, limbs go flying, you're gonna cry. It is depressing as fuck. Let's watch it together." It's just like, it's the kind of story that you're just like, wow, this is really impactful stuff. This is just, you don't get it. You don't get this very often. And God bless the fact it made it itself on Toonami to have a wider audience. That's huge. That is so awesome. Because I remember back with season 1 coming out, and Sketch and I were just like, yo, this would be perfect for it. This would be fantastic. A little late, but it's been such a ride.
It's been nice for me because it was an excuse to actually watch it. I've known about it, I just never got around to it until it hit Toonami.
Right, and just think, there's going to be another part.
I know.
Could be a while before that.
Yeah.
It probably will, but like, if you think this season's bad, then all of a sudden we get to a new one, and it's just like, oh god.
Oh man, I know.
It's like,
take me back to that town of capitalism. It was better than this.
It's like that Grim Reaper meme where it's just like, haha, first season, second season, third season. It gets worse.
And we've barely even seen what the 6th layer has to offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Much less even lower.
Yeah. And I do agree with, or not agree, but like I will say with Sketch, there have been some very like comical yet disturbing moments at the same time, as you would mention the Stewie Griffin head. How about the fact that the toilet in this series?
Yes.
Oh,
the toilet is also a villager.
I have a real crappy job.
I guess someone really wanted to be a toilet.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe they just felt as dirty as one. I don't know.
It's best not to dwell on it.
No, but like the comedy of that is not lost. I will put it that way.
Oh well, of course not. I mean, that's also made in Abyss.
Maybe it just likes licking people's butts.
Hey,
we don't kink shame on this podcast.
Except for maybe that one.
They became a human bidet.
Specifically because it's licking underage butts.
Well, yes, we do realize that part of it's Sketch. If we wanted to go with like more realistic like that, then that's not funny at all. Neither is the Iramui head thing. All right?
No, of course not. It's horrifying.
That's why it goes without saying on at least that part of it.
You can't really detach that from it all.
Then I guess we scrub this whole part where it's just like there is no comedy of it whatsoever.
I'm not saying that there's no comedy. I'm just saying
no comedy.
It's
none at all. None at all.
Also,
while we laugh ourselves to depression, that's Made in Abyss taught us that very well. I'm very curious on what a lot of viewers and listeners feel has been their kind of feelings and thoughts towards this story arc. And I guess the season as a whole, because the story arc hasn't really changed, because, again, there's just a lot of trauma, right? And it's something that we were kind of expecting just from what we saw with the first season. Obviously, Nanachi's backstory, very sad, especially what we saw with the film, with with Rico's current white whistle. If you saw the film, you'd understand how that was very sad with everything that happened through that, little arc as well. And then, of course, just Rico kind of learning her family history and kind of how depressing that is. Now we're here, right? Like, how do you guys feel? And I'm talking to listeners on that. I don't need you guys to answer, just in case I wasn't clear on it. But how do you feel on these types of subjects, as well as the type of, I want to say, not necessarily trauma, because I've already used that word, but more so at least on the subjects of what it kind of delves into, where outcasts, wanting to be part of something, not getting your wish, miscarriage, right? murder, surviving cannibalism. Like there's so much, and it's just like, God, I feel like we need like a young college student who's doing a dissertation about trauma to really kind of give us really a better understanding of everything. Because God, this is
Abyss Trauma Center.
This is a dissertation paper that would get you an A+. Full
And then there's
remark,
Maji Kaja's derpy face.
dean's list and all. I'm ignoring Laser.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
It's just, I'm curious how fans are feeling with this, because like I say, this isn't the, oh God, it's more of just a, and like, you get like the creepy crawly feeling. You feel a little itchy, like in a spot, maybe a little sweaty too, and you're just like, oh, I don't like this at all. I mean,
this isn't Full Metal Alchemist. This is Grave of the Fireflies.
Yeah,
I think this is crueler than Grave of the Fireflies.
I was gonna say I think it's a little worse sketch.
Well, Grave of the Fireflies is way more realistic because
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Not wrong.
Thankfully, we do not have an abyss in this world.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm very curious how people are feeling up towards this show, especially because it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, we have a colleague who will not watch it. Totally understandable. I'm not saying like shame.
More than one.
Oh, we have more. Oh, I thought it was just the one. Well then, don't out them. Don't out them.
Others have come forward and decided this is where I get off.
I don't blame them.
I don't blame anyone.
Get off the bus. Yep.
Yeah.
Your stop is here. By all means.
I totally understand.
I'm too invested to stop. I must bear the pain.
If it wasn't so well written, I absolutely would have got off the train after the movie. Straight up.
Yeah.
There's some interesting commentary that Voiko makes throughout this during her narration, that they came to this place looking for gold, looking for treasure, and all they found was darkness, but it was such a warm, comforting darkness.
That's the real scary part.
Yeah.
The narration from Voiko really kind of solidifies just how well written I feel this whole arc is. 100%.
And Kristen McGuire's delivery.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
A+.
are we really surprised? Like,
No.
The cast has been phenomenal in this
Oh
series.
yeah, absolutely.
Like especially this season too, but like I don't think you have to worry about the English cast when it comes to this series. Like especially cuz like you get to really like hit some emotional stuff. I think that makes it like the performance, you get much more out of people when it comes to like very real place. And I mean that more so in a sense of just like when you get to really dive into these types of, emotions and subjects, I feel like an ADR director really can get the best out of their actors, and like, so like to me, that's just like inconsequential. Like if the dubbing wasn't good, I wouldn't be nearly as invested at all. But this has been so good. Absolutely fantastic. And you're right. The narration kind of puts a nice little bow on the just desolate, awful feeling that you get from everything. Because it's like that buyer's remorse type of thing. We went to do something we thought was good, and it ended up we turned into the monsters ourselves. All right. And it's almost, and like they wanted to turn around. They tried to. They weren't allowed to. And that's what makes it even worse, that they committed and there was no going back. They had no option to go back. And it's just, you feel for a lot of them. Not all, but you definitely feel for a lot of them. At least that's how I feel. But
now Faputa's rage is coming.
Oh boy. She looks like when someone says, "Oh, I'm eating leftover pizza, don't take it," and then someone took it right after you said it.
Oh, yep.
Yep.
It's Faputa's turn on the Xbox.
I think we found a title name.
Oh boy.
Everyone's gonna. What did they combine gaming with Made in Abyss? No, no, not at all. We needed something to make us laugh. Please don't take this away from us.
Yeah,
Oh,
what else are we going to call this episode?
depression. The show.
Depression.
Depression.
At least that's how it feels to me. But yeah, no, that's kind of all I really had
There's
about
depression.
how Made in Abyss has been. I think these 3 episodes kind of encapsulates everything that I love touching upon when it comes to talking about these tough subjects. I think that the storytelling really just hit its stride like perfectly with these last 3 episodes. And God bless, we still have more. What more can they take away from us, Sketch? What more?
Oh boy.
Everything.
Have you seen this already?
I have, but I honestly don't remember all the events that occur in the next 3 episodes.
Dear
I'm like,
God.
all right, we're at this point. What else happens?
Guys, I want you to realize something. He was so trauma dumped by this, he had to erase it from his mind. It's bad.
no.
It's going rough.
I mean, there's definitely things, but we're already past the like absolutely gut-wrenching, heartbreaking moments in this storyline, I think.
Yeah, I think these sets of episodes are like the biggest hump. The rest of it's still sad, but it's not gonna
there's
be like
still very sad
disturbing.
things that happen, but
Yeah, I've also watched ahead because I could.
but mostly violence.
Yes.
Yay,
That is a
violence.
good description of what's to come. That's a good spoiler-free description of what's to come.
I'm FFing at 15. Fuck y'all.
We're going from Full Metal Alchemist to Hellsing Ultimate. Here we go.
Wait a minute. So there's a chimera in this?
What is Faputa but not a chimera?
That's actually a very good point.
I mean, they're all chimeras.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah.
But we're the vampires.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the real question is, where are the Nazis?
That too.
Hopefully dead.
I mean,
Yes.
yes. or in the process of being dead.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, but it's gonna be a wild ride. So buckle up.
So I'm the only one who hasn't seen it. Oh boy. I'm in danger.
Well, then you definitely have to come back for the last one.
I love talking about Made in Abyss. I'd be happy to be back. Schedule permitting, of course.
Schedule permitting, yes. Well, I mean, it'll be the last one, so we can be flexible there. Not going to be a problem.
VLord, I'm in danger. Please hold me.
I can't save you from this, CJ. You're on your own.
I am
God damn
not
it,
used
VLord.
to being ahead of you on this show, CJ. But over Christmas, I'm just like, I can't let it stop.
I
where
don't.
It's not here.
If it's not airing on Toonami, I just don't have time to watch. I make very few exceptions. The 3 shows being Spy Family, Chainsaw, and Licorice Recoil.
I
Excellent
think
choices.
the simulcast of this season actually took a week break after this episode, or it was either that one or episode after episode 9, because it was. But there was a week break in there before they finished, which was brutal.
Ooh, I didn't have that experience. By the time I got to it, they dubbed the whole thing.
Yeah.
Sketch, they needed to give everyone extra time from depression.
Understandable.
Understandable. Totally understandable. Plus, it has an hour-long finale, like the first season.
Yay, content. It makes us sad, but it's still content. We'll take
Made
it.
you some content.
Mm-hmm.
But that's pretty much all I have for this episode, Sketch. So I think we're ready for some house cleaning. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we are.
Unless you don't want to.
Well, I mean, one look at my condo will tell you how much I love to clean house. It's slowly getting better.
I'm just a defeated man on this podcast.
I wasn't expecting to have to read this off, so give me a moment. Okay.
Do you want us to give you some filler?
Nah, I'm good now.
One Piece filler?
Well, after we get through the rest of Punk Hazard, there is a short filler arc.
Let's go.
Yeah, there is.
And it is so stupid.
I'm not gonna lie, I watched like the first episode of that filler and skipped it.
It is so incredibly stupid. You're like, how? I mean, One Piece has a serious problem with the filler villains being like so stupid. And you're like, there's no way that Luffy can't beat this guy in an instant. And yet, because it's a filler villain and we're going more than one episode of this nonsense, he can't beat them right away. It's just bad.
I thought you were going to tell me it was like a filler of One Piece TCG. So I'll take this.
If you ever wanted to see Law act like a dog,
I'm in.
With a collar and all.
Sketch, you already sold me once. I don't need it again.
Stop, please. I can't get any more erect. Yeah, that filler is not kind to Law. Anyway, here's our house cleaning. You can email us at podcast@ToonamiFaithful.com. Please tell us your thoughts on Made in Abyss thus far. You may have thoughts, and perhaps we will be able to collect and read them for our final conversation. And you can follow us on Facebook.com/Toonami Faithful Podcast and on Twitter @Toonami Podcast. You can listen to the podcast on just about everything, including Apple Podcasts, Castbox, Deezer, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Overcast, Podbay, Podbean, Podcast Addict, Radio.com, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and maybe other things. And you can find every episode of the podcast to stream online at soundcloud.com/Toonami Faithful Podcast. And you can get the latest news by following @Toonami News on Twitter and read the news, views, and reviews on ToonamiFaithful.com. All right, Laser, tell them where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter @LaserKid Prime. You can find my editorials right here on Toonami Faithful. And you can find me on many of VLord's spectacular podcasts. You might say they're the VLord podcast universe.
Yes, VLord, tell us about the VLord podcast universe.
Yes, so to start, you can find me on Twitter @VLordGTZ, and then I write various things when I have time for the Toonami Faithful website, as well as MangaMavericks.com, so you can check out my writing over there. And then as far as the VLord podcast universe goes, the head podcast of the bunch is the Demon Slayer podcast, where we talk about Demon Slayer, and that's on Twitter @DSlayerPodcast. And then we have a bunch of other podcasts besides that, the Dumb Weebs podcast, Saturday Night Shaggy, and Oversoul Shaman King podcast. So go listen to all of those.
And CJ, tell them where they can find you.
No.
No!
No. I was wondering how to go forward with that, but I was like, no, that's all I got.
You can find him dunking on people on Twitter.
I was say that. I did play basketball, and dunking was a specialty. So, for me, you can find me on Twitter @CJMaffris. I'm not on there as much, sadly. Other things work, yada yada. And other than that, I'm trying out some new games. One I might even be reviewing for Toonami Faithful. So be on the lookout if I end up getting enough playtime to be able to do that at a reasonable time. But yeah, other than that, you can follow me on Twitter or don't. Like, it's honestly fine. I don't really care.
It's whatever.
It honestly, I don't care. I really don't. Like, by all means,
He really doesn't.
On Toonami fans, you know where to find me. Believe me, people will message Sketch on different forum boards about how awful I am. So by all means, you can find me. It's not hard to. So enjoy it while you can and things like that. So that's where you can find me. That's really all that matters. And Sketch, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Sketch1984. And CJ, you know, people can also appreciate some of your contributions to at Toonami News on Saturday nights as you help out with the live tweeting.
I don't as much. I mostly help with like retweeting of fans. You know, one thing that I thought that, and this is something that, you know, back when, you know, our wonderful social media director Celia Rose was with us, I really thought that we lacked a community aspect, and so I wanted to make sure that we try to keep that a little bit. All right. So, you know, I'm usually the one who likes to find, you know, witty stuff from our followers and people who are live tweeting Toonami stuff that are clever, as well as, you know, our staff members as well. There are times where I have to, you know, sub in, depending on all that, and I do the best I can on those fronts. I think my favorite that I've done recently was the What's Up Doc with Mirako for My Hero Academia. That one was really fun. And it's obvious, but like it was still good. But yes, I do help out with that. You know, Steven and Brittany do a phenomenal job, you know, especially on a few weekends where I'm not able to really help out as much. So both of them do a phenomenal job. I mostly want to just oversee more than anything to make sure that they stay on track, as well as being able to support them whatever they might need. But yeah, I am behind the account during Saturdays to try to make sure everything goes as well as I can for Toonami. You know, that's the big thing. It's to keep that light going. And as one of our staff members say, thank God bless for people like us to be able to keep the flame going. It's not someone on this podcast, but someone we all love. So.
All right. Well, thank you for listening each and every time we put out a podcast. We always appreciate your listenership. And until next time, we're punching out.
Lord Krazar and his squad are Earth's last hope.
Nothing rivals the greatness of Cosmic Super Fortress Gold Diamond!
Fall Masters Rubicon premieres Monday, February 20th at midnight, next day on HBO Max.